get them into the right calls. I think he can get them lined up. I think he can complete passes, get the ball out quickly, and keep the chains moving and not turn the ball over. And that's what they're looking for, right?
The sports world snapped to attention the moment Mel Kiper Jr. went nuclear on Cleveland media narratives, and it wasn't subtle. The tipping point came after a stretch of coverage that painted Shedeur Sanders as inconsistent, overhyped, or somehow underperforming despite tape and numbers saying otherwise. Kiper didn't just disagree, he dismantled the framing. He pointed to down and distance efficiency, third down conversion rates, pressure to sack avoidance, and red zone decision-making that consistently ranked near the top of comparable young quarterbacks. Cleveland outlets had leaned on selective stats and highlight bait edits, cutting context out of drives that ended in points or field position wins.
Really, when you look at what Shedeur did this year, not having any training camp, never with the ones, defense, offense, be thrown out there, playing in brutal weather conditions, not in dome, and screams he's the quarterback. But if people are going to negative in April, they're going to be negative now because they're going to look, where is he ranked? Forget that. Look at the interceptions that were off of Jerry Jeudy.
Kiper called it out as lazy at best and misleading at worst. He emphasized that quarterback evaluation isn't a vibes contest. It's a process rooted in repetition, situation mastery, and growth curves. His breakdown included specific film notes, anticipatory throws versus disguised coverages, check with me audibles that flipped protections, and ball placement on outbreaking routes that kept receivers safe while moving chains. The message was loud. This season wasn't a mystery, it was misreported. Kiper also highlighted how Cleveland media recycled preseason narratives long after evidence contradicted them. That's how reputations get warped. He stressed that once a label sticks, every incompletion becomes proof, while successful sequences get ignored. The frustration boiled over, because this wasn't about defending a player from criticism, it was about correcting the record. In Kiper's words, if coverage can't evolve with data and tape, it becomes propaganda. And when propaganda drives public pressure, it bleeds into decision-making. That's the real danger. The spark wasn't personal, it was professional. Kiper demanded standards, he demanded accuracy, and he demanded accountability for how stories are told when careers are on the line. Kiper went straight to the receipts. He laid out a week-by-week arc that showed clear progression, faster processing versus blitz looks, improved footwork under interior pressure, and smarter throwaways that protected possessions.
Accuracy's there. Everything about Shedeur Sanders screams he's the quarterback. But if people are going to negative in April, they're going to be negative now because they're going to look, where is he ranked? Forget that. Look at the interceptions that were off of Jerry Jeudy, off of Judkin's shoulder. Batted balls like Burrow had one yesterday, batted in a pick six. You blaming Burrow for that? No. You're blaming Shedeur for a couple batted balls that were picked up? You shouldn't, okay? So you're going to be fair here. So
Cleveland media cherry-picked box scores without acknowledging game scripts that limited attempts while maximizing efficiency. Kiper corrected that by showing EPA per play spikes in neutral situations and sustained drives that flipped field position even without flashy totals. He highlighted how protection calls improved mid-season, allowing Shedeur to climb the pocket instead of bailing, and how route spacing adjustments unlocked timing throws. These aren't opinions, they're teach-tape moments. Kiper also addressed the myth that big moments were missing. He pointed to late-game conversions, 2-minute command, and audible checks that punished over-aggressive fronts. The coverage ignored that because it didn't fit the narrative. He even called out misleading graphics that stacked raw yardage against pass-heavy teams, ignoring efficiency and turnover avoidance. That's bad math and worse journalism. Kiper stressed that quarterback development is non-linear, and judging it through weekly hot takes is reckless. The season, when viewed honestly, showed leadership growth, command of protections, and consistent decision-making. Cleveland media focused on what didn't pop instead of what sustained wins.
Dillon Gabriel will become the first quarterback to make his initial NFL start in one of the international games. Jason Lloyd with his thoughts on Dillon Gabriel.
I actually think Dillon is going to be competent. I don't think he's going to be a star. I don't think he's not throwing for 300 yards or anything like that. But I do think he's going to get them into the right call.
Kiper's tone sharpened because this wasn't a one-off slip. It was a pattern. He warned that when markets misrepresent young quarterbacks, agents, coaches, and players take notice, and trust erodes. The fix is simple. Show the whole drive, not the worst clip. Show the check that beat the blitz, not the sack that came from a missed block. The season wasn't lied about because of ignorance. It was lied about because lies get clicks. Kiper wasn't having it. The backlash landed heavy because the critique was specific. Kiper didn't wave his hands, he named habits. He called out headline framing that implied regression without evidence and talk radio loops that repeated claims without watching full games. Cleveland's ecosystem amplified it, turning half-truths into consensus. Kiper explained how that echo chamber pressures staffs to respond to noise instead of trusting process. That's how franchises drift. He emphasized that quarterbacks feel it too. Confidence isn't fragile, but constant misrepresentation distracts. The city prides itself on toughness, yet the coverage lacked rigor. Kiper challenged that contradiction. He also addressed how media feuds can overshadow football truths, turning evaluation into theater. That hurts fans who want real insight. His comments sparked internal reviews at multiple outlets, with producers asking for deeper tape segments instead of soundbite debates. The hit was hard because it exposed shortcuts. Cleveland media had a chance to evolve and chose comfort. Kiper forced the pivot. He reminded everyone that credibility is built on correction as much as conviction.
That's not changing. That's not changing, though.
In great weather and brutal weather conditions. If you're going to sit there and tell me you weren't impressed with the rookie year of Shedeur Sanders.
When new evidence arrives, narratives must change. Refusing to adjust isn't loyalty, it's negligence. The city deserves better coverage, and the player deserves fair assessment. That's the core of the takedown. Around the league, the response was telling. Scouts and coaches quietly backed Kiper's stance, noting that internal grades aligned more with his breakdown than with public chatter. Several evaluators praised Shedeur's situational awareness and command at the line, citing fewer negative plays and better pre-snap recognition. Former players echoed that efficiency wins games, not viral throws. The support stayed mostly off-camera, but it mattered. Kiper's credibility amplified it. Analysts began adjusting segments, adding context, and acknowledging growth. That's impact. The conversation shifted from what went wrong to what improved and why. That's how development gets understood. Kiper didn't crown anyone, he corrected the lens. That correction rippled into betting markets, fantasy projections, and even national studio shows. When truth re-enters the room, everything recalibrates. The league thrives on honest evaluation. Kiper pushed it back towards center. The final message landed clean. Kiper closed by demanding accountability from anyone shaping narratives. Watch the tape, respect the data, update the story. He warned that misreporting seasons doesn't just hurt players, it poisons discourse. The fix isn't complicated. Full game context, transparent metrics, and the humility to correct mistakes. That standard protects fans and preserves credibility. Shedeur's season didn't need saving, it needed honesty. Kiper provided it, and when honesty wins, football wins. As the dust settled from Mel Kiper Jr.'s comments, one thing became impossible to ignore. The numbers completely wrecked the Cleveland media narrative. Once national analysts actually laid the stats side by side, the gap between reality and reporting looked embarrassing. Shedeur Sanders finished the season near the top of the league in pressure-adjusted completion rate, meaning when the pocket collapsed, production didn't. That stat alone dismantled weeks of talk about panic and poor pocket presence. On third downs, especially third and medium, the offense stayed alive at an elite clip. That's quarterback control, not luck. Yet local coverage focused on raw yardage totals without acknowledging game flow or defensive looks. Advanced metrics told an even louder story. Time to throw improved month over month, sack responsibility dropped, and turnover-worthy plays ranked far lower than the talking heads admitted. Film showed consistent pre-snap reads, subtle shoulder manipulation, and throws made before receivers even snapped their brakes. That's high-level quarterbacking. Analytics departments around the league flagged the season as quietly strong, the kind of year that builds winning habits, even if headlines stay muted. Cleveland media ignored that because it didn't fit the original draft day skepticism. What made the spin worse was how often negative moments were isolated. One missed read would get replayed for days, while entire series of surgical execution disappeared. That's not analysis, it's agenda-driven framing. Kiper's takedown forced those numbers back into the conversation, and suddenly the narrative couldn't survive daylight. Fans started pulling stats themselves, calling out misleading graphics and selective clips. Once the audience woke up, the illusion cracked. This chapter wasn't about opinion versus opinion, it was about math versus misinformation, and misinformation got smoked. This situation exposed something deeper than one quarterback's season. Mel Kiper Jr. wasn't just defending Shedeur Sanders, he was calling out a culture where hot takes matter more than accuracy. In modern sports media, being first and loud often beats being right. Cleveland's coverage became a case study in how confirmation bias works. Once a player gets labeled early, everything afterward gets filtered to support that label. Improvement becomes too late, success becomes system-driven, and leadership gets dismissed as media training. That mindset poisons development narratives. Quarterbacks aren't allowed to grow. They're expected to instantly validate opinions. Kiper directly challenged that, pointing out that the league itself doesn't operate that way. Coaches, scouts, and front offices track trends, not tweets. Several media members privately admitted they hadn't watched full games before forming strong opinions. That confession alone explained everything. The coverage wasn't malicious, it was lazy, and lazy coverage becomes harmful when it shapes public pressure. Fans picked up on it fast. Social media flipped from parroting talking points to questioning them. Clips surfaced showing breakdowns that never aired locally. The audience got smarter, and the media got exposed. Kiper's words forced an uncomfortable mirror moment. Either elevate the work or lose trust. This wasn't a small market issue either, it's happening everywhere. Cleveland just got caught first. And once people saw behind the curtain, the respect shifted away from the microphones and toward the tape. That's a dangerous shift for anyone surviving on narratives instead of knowledge. The fallout from this moment is still unfolding, but the direction is clear. Cleveland media has already begun adjusting tone, focusing more on process, decision-making, and film-based critique rather than recycled takes. That's not coincidence, that's correction. Mel Kiper Jr. set a new standard publicly, and once standards change, anything below them looks weak. Shedeur Sanders now enters the next chapter of his career with something rare, a documented case study of media being wrong. That matters. Players don't forget who told the truth and who didn't. Locker rooms pay attention, agents pay attention, front offices definitely pay attention. When a national voice calls out local distortion, it recalibrates how stories are consumed. The quarterback is no longer reacting to noise, he's operating above it. That's power. Coaches internally praised how the situation was handled, noting that leadership stays quiet while chaos talks loud. For fans, this moment was a reminder to trust eyes over echo chambers. For media, it was a warning shot. And for the league, it was proof that development narratives still matter when someone is willing to fight for accuracy. This wasn't about protecting a player, it was about protecting the game from lazy storytelling. And that message landed clean. If this breakdown brought clarity and value, show support by hitting like and subscribing at the end of the video, because real analysis deserves real backing.